Good day to you. This is Galactic bringing you another science presentation in a continuing series on astronomy. Astronomy, of course, goes to astrophysics. After astrophysics, you go to mathematics. From mathematics, you go to numbers. And from numbers, you go to infinity, and you've made the full circuit. The word infinity defines something that is non-existent. The reason for the word is that infinity does not exist. But that's a contradiction. The whole reason we're studying infinity, or coming in contact with infinity, is that it does exist. So which is it? The inability to settle on whether this thing exists or not is called a paradox. There are several words for paradoxical things. There's the word dilemma. There's the word conundrum. I made a study of this. There's quite a few more words and terms that we use. You have heard, of course, of the quantum paradox. This paradox of infinity is extremely difficult to even talk about because of the nature of the semantic difficulty. What is the wave-particle duality, and how would that be similar to the paradox of infinity? It's the infuriating, really actually rather maddening inability to even state what you're trying to say. Because it's like when you try to talk about geometry and you keep saying that you're getting to the point. And pretty soon you just grow sick and goddamn tired of making this pun. Like, there's Neptune and Uranus, and then you wince. You know that everyone has a horse grin and nobody's following you anymore, and they're just gonna remember you because you said your anus. There is no such thing as infinity by definition. It's the definition of something that cannot exist. Well, then what's the problem? What is the problem then? It doesn't exist. Well, it kind of does. Because what is it? Well, it's the edge on which there's no other side. Alright, well, what we're going to do tonight, now that the levity is over, is we're going to solve it. I'm actually going to give you, for the first time ever in the history of mankind, nobody has ever been able to get around this pile of quicksand. I gotta let my cat out and chew these almonds. I'll be right back. Excuse me.
This is a little baby cat wants to go out.
You want to go and see infinity, honey? Go out and see infinity. Come back and tell us what you found out there in infinity, little cat. I suppose one of the reasons I'm acting pixelated is because it took me a long time to get this definition that I'm going to tell you. And it is correct. It's correct. It's absolutely correct. For the first time in the for the first time in the history of science, we're gonna have the definition of infinity that solves everything. And I'm sure you're like, yeah, sure. But oh yeah. Okay, so let's get going here. We're all set now. I'm not kidding. That's why I'm laughing hysterically, because it's the easiest. You knew, we all knew, whatever the answer is, it's just gonna be like, oh my goodness, I should have seen that when I was 13 years old. Well, don't worry, because Albert Einstein didn't see it. Richard Feynman didn't see it. And no one alive today or anyone that's ever lived has ever seen it. So don't feel ashamed once I tell you. Hey, oh, this is dead serious. I'm not screwing around here. I've got the robe on, I got the tie, I got a haircut. I got my eyes fixed. So, I'm sorry, I'm just starving. I shouldn't have turned this on, but I'm so excited. I just had to share, even with almond all over my... yeah. That is so rude. They would not show this video in Japan. Because what I just did, they were just like, no way are we going to put up with that. Because they're very cultured. But I'm a Western-born American. Although I have my culture as well. Medicine water. This got me through the summer. We're almost through the winter now. Secret of Infinity that nobody has ever understood. So I'm going to tell you what it is, so that you'll know forever, and you'll be able to tell your children. Just like God trusted Abraham to pass on the information about astronomy and how wonderful it is to go free. That you don't have to suffer forever on this goddamn planet. You can go to heaven while you're still kicking. And heaven will welcome you in and won't welcome anyone else. Because they didn't care. They didn't love wisdom enough to try. But we are. Enough to get the answer about infinity too. Oh, that's from heaven? What, do you think I'm just making this stuff up? No. Heaven is merciful. Allah be praised. Amen. So, let's go. Quick recap of what we covered in the last 2 lectures. There are 4 infinities, logically speaking. 2 of them are mathematical, and I covered those in lectures that you'll never watch because you're so frickin' lazy. 4 infinities. Logically speaking, 2 of them are mathematical. Why are there 2? Because there's one at the edge of the number system that's so big that it's not a number, which is a contradiction and a paradox, yes. Which is why it's a fucking thorn in the butt of science. That's the big, huge infinity that I taught you the name for it. It's called the outer product. Outer? And then in your dream time or just by magic, because you gave some effort, there's a moral lesson. You will realize that outer, there must be an inner. And then you think, well, I must know. This is science. There's also an inner product. Well, both of those have an infinity. And those are the only 2 categorical infinities in mathematics. And that's absolutely true because I said so. And I told you in the last lecture. Doesn't that help? That really helps. There are 2 mathematical infinities. Now, that's nice, and I'm sure you just get a tingly feeling all over. You see, what that tells us is that there are 2 kinds of infinity. Mathematically, that is true. There are exactly 2 infinities in mathematics. It's built into the number system. So I'm torturing you so you'll know that you actually paid for this. Because what I'm about to tell you, you should be required to pay me like $1,000 an eyeball. For whoever's listening to this, $1,000 an earlobe to listen to me As who else is ever going to tell you this? Nobody. How precious is it? It's more precious than rubies and gold. I've already given you thousands of these, to use a hyperbolic number. Maybe a dozen. Things you'll never hear anywhere else. Well, we're not done. We're never going to be done, though. This is, we're humans. I'm humble. I like to put on a show because I'm trying to get your attention. But I deliver. I'm like the Godfather. If I say I'll reward you, I'll fucking reward you. And I do. I pay off. You wouldn't know that because you're too lazy to listen to my previous lectures, but I have compassion. I'm a very nice guy. I'm going to tell you anyway. You didn't do the homework, you didn't look up, you didn't even bother to press the button to sit there for an hour to listen to one of my lectures. Well, I don't scold you and tell you to go to hell and roast in eternal hellfire forever. No. Why would I do that? I need you. Somehow. I can't imagine how, but I know it's true. Someday I'll know that it's probably to use you. But I'll summarize it for you anyway, because I'm such a wonderful man. There's an inner infinity and an outer infinity, and those are the only two categories you'll ever need to know, and you just advanced like 4 levels through the university because of what I just told you, because that would normally take you 4 years to learn if you ever learned it. But I just gave it to you. Now, it may not do you much good, because all knowledge and wisdom has context. Let's say I told you how to build an atom bomb. It is the most perfect. All you have to do is just go out and do it. It's not going to do you any good. You don't have anyone to drop it on. So you don't need that. Now we turn to the physical side, as we must, since we're cosmologists. Of which there are 2 types, one of which is damned to eternal hellfire, and the other one is blessed above all other men and scientists. It's one or the other. That is true. And that's in the Bible. And that's in the book of Proverbs, chapters 1 to 10. The Proverbs of Shlomo, which is a Yiddish name, Shlomo. I'm a religious man, so I know all these things that baffle you. Don't worry about it. Doesn't mean you're retarded. But you better not call me any names, or I'll put a curse on you, and you'll limp for the rest of fucking eternity. For all you know, that's just to scare you, so you won't hurt me, because I fucking can't defend myself. If you came after me with a stick, you would kill me with that stick. I wouldn't resist. You'd beat the shit out of me and then stick it right through my brain, because I infuriated you so much with a word about a Jew. Because you're trained to kill anybody who says the word Jew. Because it means that you're a Hitler lover. And you'll probably answer to God and the angels for that only after you're done stomping me to death, though. I know you. And now you know me. See, I didn't say I there because that is the direct object. You don't know me, but I definitely know you. But I'm going to give you the gold anyway. So infinity is 2 things. In any context, it's 2 things, because the mathematics tells us that. There is a controversy going on right now at the highest level. Now, you may automatically say no because you don't believe in God of any kind, but let me rephrase that. Are numbers Jesus at all? They can eat you alive for all I couldn't care less, because I don't distinguish between those monsters and their victims. I'm outside the food chain. You're beyond help. Unless, there's always a chance, and of course a real man of wisdom looks for that passively. He has to hope, because I fear God and I know there's a higher plan. But you're not going to blame me for whatever happens to you, to God or Satan. I have nothing to do with you, and I never will again. I couldn't care less, okay, what happens to you. And I don't want any reward for if I do help you. Now that I've run you through the gauntlet, if you're still listening, it means you're probably serious. So the answer to the question is indeed superpositional. Numbers are Jesus. Numbers are God. Numbers are the answer. Numbers have the answer that we just could not figure out. We'll never get it except with numbers. But here's the catch. They're not your numbers, and therefore you still are out of luck. So the answer is yes. Numbers have the answer that we never would have gotten it. We never would figure out infinity if we had not had the linear numbers to give us the light, to show us the way to get the answer. What is infinity? So that we all know, and there won't be any more controversy, because we'll all know exactly the same thing about infinity. So what numbers taught us about infinity is that it's dual. And that's critical information for the next step. This is how it works. It's just like Indiana Jones. It really is romantic. And you do really have to have the right stuff and be courageous and a little bit brutal. Just like James Bond. Which I won't tell you what James Bond, who he actually was. You would hate me if I told you who James Bond actually is. So I won't. But the metaphor is true. There are good scientists and there are evil scientists. And it's not innocent. Brian Greene is not innocent. Neil Turok is not innocent. They're guilty as sin. Because in science, there is a very simple rule that keeps everything theoretically aligned. If you don't know something, you say so. Well, that should make science textbooks very short. Because you're only allowed to say what you actually know, and it's tougher than that. It can't be just something that you know. It has to be something that can be proved in a scientific court of law. And if it can't be proved, that doesn't mean you can say stuff that simply might not be disproved. It means you're only allowed to say things that have already been proved. Well, if that were strictly true, science would make no progress. And so there is a so-called cutting edge. Scratch that from your vocabulary. There's nothing cutting about it. It's the Fermi edge, which is a bow shock edge, which is a spherical metaphor. Rather than a knife edge, cut your fucking eye out, cutting edge of science. We'll stick that in your neck and watch the blood come out. There's your cutting edge. Stick it up your urethra. Stick it up your ass. That's your cutting fucking edge of science. Well, you love bloodshed? Is that it? The cutting edge of science, really. There's a lot wrong going on. It's way deep in science. But where I see it, where I notice it, where it starts to affect the innocent people who look up to us, is with Brian Greene's goddamn title to his goddamn book, because he can get away with it. In America, to make money, you can sell a skunk's asshole on a stick to someone at a street corner in New York, and the cops will walk right by, maybe even buy one, and eat a skunk's asshole on a stick themselves. But if you do that in science, we stone you to death with rocks. We'll kill you in cold blood if you try that. Not anymore. Not anymore. It used to be that scientists would fight for their reputation, which is why I don't particularly like Sir Isaac Newton. He was an asshole. But he kind of had to be, because in those days, men really cared about the truth. And if someone seems to have gotten your calculus before you had a chance to publish it, you might lose your nut over that, because that might make your constituents think, well, maybe Sir Isaac Newton is not as beloved of God as we thought, because Leibniz got it before our king and savior, the one we love and like to suck his dick. Oh, it's serious! Not anymore, it's not. Because the United States government decides who gets to be heard and who doesn't, and now the war is over. Neil deGrasse Tyson gets to say whatever the fuck he wants, and Brian Greene is given a complete pass to just tell everybody who's stupid enough to listen that there's such a thing as strings. So to complete this, to try to get this in under an hour, the secret of infinity is now in hand. I got it. So how did I do it? The numbers showed the way. Numbers are real, but it's important to read the manual. You actually have to read the instruction book. Nobody's ever done that. I did. Well, very few people know where to look for the rule book when it comes to understanding numbers. Because about a century ago, the rule book got lost. And it has a title on it that nobody even remembers the title of the rule book, which gives you the secret of numbers, which everybody thinks that they actually have when they actually don't, because they haven't read the rule book of numbers. The title of that rule book is geometry. And so I went to geometry and rewrote the rule book, because it's completely lost. Not completely. I got it back from some of the ancients. But boy, did I have to go back a long ways to find out the secrets of numbers to give us the answer to the conundrum of infinity. The first secret is, it's a dual number. And I'm going to say number because we have no other word for it. It's a unique number. And the secret, the first thing that you have to know, it's a fish ladder sequence of paradoxes that I have solved, and so you're going to have to follow me. Let's get this done in under 5 minutes. The secret path is like this. Infinity is a dual number that it is unique in two ways. It's unique in that it's the only number of its kind, and it comes in two parts that are joined exactly like electricity and magnetism, which, as you know, this is a physical metaphor, so it's a very good metaphorical basis. Electricity is never found by itself. Magnetism is never found by itself. If you think you can disprove what I just said, you are wrong, so don't try. Magnetism and electricity are one phenomenon. One phenomenon. They always occur together. And that is exactly the same situation with infinity. And now that you know that, you're in a completely different ballpark. Because now you can use a special trick in mathematics called a relation. A mathematical relation between the two aspects of infinity. There are two infinities. How do I know that? Because there are two mathematical infinities. That implies that there are two physical infinities. One of those is the edge of the universe. That is 1/2 of a geometric infinity. Only in this halfness, it's not additive half. It's proportional. So that as numbers get big and bigger and bigger, you forgot. They forgot. Science forgot. Those numbers are getting bigger, right? They're going to infinity, correct? What about what Newton said? For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Doesn't that apply to your numbers? They forgot. They didn't do their homework. They're not really very intelligent. They're not to be trusted because they don't know how to think. They don't know how to think. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When you head towards infinity, either with your vision or your telescopes or your numbers, what's happening? It's getting bigger, right? Well, where is the equal and opposite to that? You won't find it in linear space, but you will find it, if you know geometry, in the other space, which is spherical space. That is proportionality space. Look at a sphere. What's inside? Fractions less than 1. The surface of the sphere is 1. And the numbers going out are whole counting numbers. But as they go out, there's another number going in towards the center. You can't reach the center. You cannot reach the center with proportional numbers. You think about that. You cannot reach the center with fractional numbers. That's Zeno's paradox. That is Zeno's paradox. Now you know what it means. It means there's no such thing as infinity, to the proportion that there's no such thing as the center of the universe. We've never found the center. We've never found the edge. We say we found the edge. Well, that's Brian Greene telling you about strings. And we've never found the center. You know what we're doing to see if we can find the center? We're building multi-billion-dollar atom colliders, proton colliders, to crack the center of the universe open. Do you know why the governments want that? You don't want to know! But it just so happens that I want that answer as well. And if that means the destruction of all of your puppies, may it happen tomorrow, as long as I get what I want. The answer. The truth. I already know. I don't need it from you. I don't need it from the Hadron Colliders. I don't need it from Satan, from Trump, from Biden, from Putin, from Brian Greene fucking Judas, or from Neil deGrasse Tyson, the biggest asshole who's ever walked the earth. I hate these fuckers, but not as humans. Stay tuned. I'll tell you the geometric solution to universal infinite space so that you'll understand it better than you understand 1 + 1 = 2. And nobody else can do this. And this is more precious than all the gold in Fort Knox. You don't like my attitude? Fuck yourself up the ass. We'll be right back.